timestamp, and we see that okay, there is one process that an entry was made just before that traffic was first seen. Let's say 5 seconds before. So we can figure that out again, kind of those suspicious process based on those timestamp. Now there are multiple other things over there. Let's say the PowerShell script is there. So the PowerShell script, whenever it executes, it actually so the thing is that in most of the time it will be encoded. Okay, encoded, or let's say maybe it is encrypted also. Okay, so let's say you got the PowerShell script, but you will not be able to figure out what the PowerShell script is doing, for an example. So in that case, what you need to do is, even though let's say it is encoded or encrypted, for an example, let's figure out first the encoded thing. So for the encoded part, you can just do a base 64 decoding and try to understand what that PowerShell script is doing. Okay, if it is encrypted, so definitely it is not that possible to decrypt that and understand the code, but there is another way to do that, which my plan was to kind of discuss later. But because this discussion has came, maybe I can just give some overview. So there is a PowerShell event log. Okay, and in that there is a specific ID. I think that ID is 4104. Okay, and thing is that if that PowerShell has some code which is encrypted, so when that encrypted code will be executed in the system, then definitely that needs to be decrypted at some moment of time. Okay, so thing is that this PowerShell log file with this specific ID 4104, most of the time will have that data, what all PowerShell code was executed, both in decrypted format as well as in the decoded format, and also in the sequential format. Like it will have the full detail of the script that was executed. So from there, what I would do is that I will kind of analyze that log PowerShell script, and I will generate certain kind of, let's say, certain intelligence from there. Okay, some analysis, some intelligence, like okay, what IP address it is trying to communicate to, what all other persistence mechanism it is trying to kind of maintain on that host, or let's say what files it is trying to access, which folder it is trying to access. So that is another something like we'll try to do. Similarly, we have the IP address over here. So what I will do is that I will use that IP address as a pivot point, and I will try to see in the Kaspersky log, let's say which software is trying to connect with that IP address, and then I'll try to kind of do some more analysis of the software. Let's say I will look at the process tree, process child relationship, and we'll try to see, okay, who executed that malware, who executed the software, how that software is kind of running every time. So those all things will be kind of easy to kind of get it from the EDR logs, because they provide us with a process child relationship. So this is again something we'll get it from here. The other thing is definitely, let's say the malware was something like not disk resident. Okay, and let's say the EDR log was not able to figure that out. So in that case, what we will do is that we need to go to the memory analysis part and do the memory analysis And here what we'll do is that we'll execute a plugin called as netstack, and it will tell me if there are any hidden process, and if that process is kind of making a, let's say, hidden process, and if it is making a connection toward the IP address, for example. Okay. So this all thing again, kind of, we can kind of gather from the memory image. Okay, what is that hidden process? Let's say there can be a lot of other things. Let's say that what we see is that there is a non-malicious software, explorer.exe, making a connection to that IP address. So then we need to figure out if that explorer.exe had been code injected. We need to kind of analyze that too. Most probably that would be in the case that malware is trying to hide by injecting certain codes over there. So what we will be doing is that we will be kind of doing this kind of analysis, and at the same time, while the analysis is in progress, we will try to fill this Excel sheet that I have shared with you. So what we'll do is that we will try to fill this timeline thing, and with the details about like what are artifacts we are seeing, what are malware tools, or what are compromised accounts we are seeing. Okay, so those are things will not keep that, will not document those things at the last moment, but we'll document those things at the same time when we are doing some analysis and we are getting something useful from there, like network indicators, all the pivot points, all the hostbed indicator will try to kind of see that. Okay, but thing is that for this case, since you guys has the EDR log, I will tell is that maybe in that case you won't need to execute cape, you won't need to execute full disk image. You will be able to do most of the analysis, at least 90% of the analysis, just from the EDR log. Okay, that yes, that EDR log. What you can do is that you can, using that EDR, you can kind of get a connection. You can execute the auto run SA tool, get all the persistence that has been there. You can gather the memory image from that EDR tool, and apart from that, you can just analyze the process size relationship. And that process size relationship will also, it has a search bar, I think, most of the time, wherein we can just give the IP address and it will tell you, okay, what process was seen in the EDR log that was making a connection to that that process. So in the CrowdStrike, I think there is a network connect event type. If you just search for that, just give it, like it, let's say if you're using the Splunk log, the Splunk tool, same tool, then it's very easy. You just give the IP address, search in the CrowdStrike log, and it will tell you what process is making that connection. And then you kind of figure out, okay, much more detail about that process, how it came into the system, So maybe in that case, you need to do the, let's say, the full disk image. You've done the analysis, and let's say that process came in, let's say at 8 a.m. for example, on the host. Okay, on let's say 1st of July. Okay, so what you can do is that, using again, that's the pivot point, you can go to the timeline. Okay, and in that timeline, just figure out, okay, what all websites or what all connections were made, let's say just before that, let's say 5 seconds before, and maybe most probably you will see that, okay, there was a suspicious website that was visited in the Chrome browser, and that all thing will be recorded in timeline, and you can figure out, okay, how that malware somehow made an entry to the host. Okay, and this is how, like, because in this case, you already have the pivot thing, because you have the PowerShell script, so the analysis will be little bit easier to perform, because you have something to pivot upon, and from there you can create a lot of other IOCs. That's the thing. But if that's not the case, then it will be really hard analysis. You need to kind of do certain more, like, let's say you execute cape after you have taken the memory image, then it's fine to kind of execute the cape, because the memory image will not be kind of overwritten, the artifacts will not be overwritten. So once memory image will taken, you do the cape analysis, you kind of just figure out, okay, quickly figure out what all other suspicious things are happening. And if you need further more details, the client is expecting certain reports, what you do is that you do the full disk image analysis, where you kind of create a timeline, and then from a timeline, you figure out, okay, what all things happen. So you use this kind of things as a, so let's say the PowerShell script, for an example, you delete that and it get auto-generated. So the timeline will have that thing. So let's say the PowerShell script, you deleted that at 8 a.m. in 1st of July, and at 8:01, the PowerShell script again got executed as random. So the timeline will have the record which software actually created that PowerShell script. Okay, it will be the full data that will be there in the timeline. Okay, so the thing is that this case, that one you said, will be a little bit easier to analyze. The only reason for that, you have the pivot logs, you have something to pivot upon, and the best thing, you have the EDR log. But that's how the investigation will proceed. But if you don't have the EDR, or let's say the pivot point, then you need to kind of figure out from the cape analysis or the memory analysis. You need to figure out, okay, what all, how to kind of, okay, what these are the logs, but you need to kind of, as a forensic analyst, you need to know how to kind of, what are logs are useful for me, and how to infer the meaning from those logs. So over there, the timeline and the memory image will be utmost importance. And as I told, the IP address, since you have that, so the event, the traffic first same time will be again the most important thing, because that will help you in kind of pivoting, and because the timeline will be quite big. Let's say it is a timeline of, let's say, 10 GB of file, and 10 GB of file is recording, let's say, 1st of January 2023 to, let's say, 1st of July 2023, all the events. and now you see that, okay, that first traffic seen was, let's say, on 29th of June, for an example. So you just prepare a smaller timeline